But you know what?
This is four brothers in here.
Hey, it is.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go. Let's go.
Is that Tyrese and Andre 3000?
3 stacks.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
What a Wahlberg.
Word.
Hey, but let's get into this NBA draft. We had to lighten the mood a little bit before. The Detroit Pistons selected Ron Holland, the 18-year-old of the G League Ignite, number 5 overall. 6'8", and I've heard some people say he's probably more like 6'7".
Yeah.
But he still has some room to grow. He's one of those guys that I don't believe his man weight has necessarily set in. When you talk about
man weight.
The man weight. When you look at Dalton Connect, 23 years old, when you look at Sadiq Bey, when the Pistons drafted him, you could tell that he was older. You could tell that man weight had set in. His body was a little bit more filled out. Ron Holland isn't there yet. But I like what he brings to the table. I know that our initial reaction last night was one that probably looked like, you know what, not necessarily happy with the pick. And I think that there's a lot of questions, and it's fair because everything leading up to it, from a lot of the talking heads, a lot of the scouts, a lot of reports, was that Ron Holland was somebody that you could get if you traded back in this draft. But this draft proved so much to us that the value wasn't quite what we thought it was.
Yeah.
You see Rob Dillingham, that trade for way down the road future first-round picks.
2031?
2031. That's when you start to realize the trade back options probably weren't there for the Detroit Pistons. So at that point in time, you have to decide between this. Do you go and get somebody who has a low ceiling but can step in right away and help you with one of these needs that we have right now in the squad, which one of the primary ones, shooting and more shooting. Obviously, we have a need for a defensive presence like what Klingon could provide or what maybe Memphis is hoping Zach Edey provides. So there were some needs. We knew 3-and-D type of wing. There were some shooters on the board, but the Detroit Pistons, in my opinion, and this is what you have to do when you're in the top 5, they took a swing for a home run type of a hit. The high potential guy, a guy who just within a season ago was the number 1 prospect in terms of who people thought could go number 1 in the draft. This is not a guy to just kind of sneeze at. The talent is there. The only issue we talked about on the draft show as well, Ron Holland, was the shooting. But everything else is there. And he did this in the G League, not in college.
Yeah, we'll get critical on him, but let's talk about the things that are good about his game. Let's talk about what we like, because he did do a lot of things while in the G League, leading up to the G League, becoming the top prospect in the nation. And he's a bucket at 18.
Absolute bucket.
Talk about his usage rate. Talk about some of the things he did playing in the G League against bigger guys. I don't want to say grown men because there's still young kids in there too, but more developed guys. So he averaged 2.5 steals a game. I know you got some stuff prepared.
Yeah.
But he does have a lot good about his game, just not shooting, and we'll get to that.
Yeah. And the shooting, that's a conversation to have, because Trajan Langdon has some good comments about that as well. But Ron Holland, 6'8", 208 pounds, 18.5 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 2.1 steals, and 1.1 blocks. And this is in the G League, which is going to be a little bit, it's going to be tougher competition and more NBA-type competition than college. So I do value these stats. It's not that I believe these are things that's just going to be a one-to-one equivalent. It's just going to transfer over. But as it relates to what he's already proven against NBA-style defenses and within NBA-style offenses, Ron Holland has proven that he can handle the volume everywhere except for shooting from behind the arc. But it's one season. But 47.4% from the field on 15.5 field goal attempts per game. That's a whole lot of shots a game. And to be able to shoot 48%, he was doing a lot of good. So when I look at this thing, the three-point shooting is 24% on 3.1 three-point.
Yeah, so that's not good.
Attempts per game.
That's
not good at all. And it doesn't fill any of the needs. But if you could get that shot right, which is something that Trajan Langdon was talking about.
Fred Vinson.
And that's why he mentioned Fred Vinson. That's why you hire a Fred Vinson to this to be here. And another one of the things that we discussed last night as well was, what does this mean for the logjam on the wing? Because you already have an Asar Thompson here. We saw how that played out. A guy who couldn't necessarily shoot, but could bring it on the defensive end, which is something Ron Holland can do. The difference between the two, though, is that Ron Holland has a lot more to his game, where he could even probably play the two, a big two guard.
That's a big two guard.
He's a very, very versatile player. He got the handle. Obviously, some things you want to tighten up on. But Langdon actually, and I want to credit Omari Sankofa for putting this out there, from the post-draft press conference last night. Langdon on Holland and Asar. He says, I think they can play together. I think they can play on different units, and they may not look good together at first, but they're young, developing players. That's going to happen when they're 18 and 19. And on their athleticism, he says, I think they're similar. High compete level, high ability to impact defensive end, elite athleticism and size for the position, big-time rebounders. Those guys are hard to find now. So they're taking a big swing on high reward. It's going to come with some risk, and I don't think it's that much risk. We can't have this kind of revisionist narrative right now. We said going into this draft that we would be okay if they traded the pick. We said going into this draft that we would be okay, you know, if they deprioritized the youth movement and started to make a move towards adding players that we think can impact them right now. They're going to make a pick in this draft. I'm not going to necessarily cry about what the player was or wasn't, though I wanted shooting. I like Dalton Connect. Klingon was there on the board. You're taking a swing at a guy who could bring you so much more if Ron Holland pans out to be what a lot of these scouts for years have said he is.
Yeah, good. Is it safe to say that the risk is just the fit with the Pistons, how they're currently constructed, just it not working out versus the risk of the player? He's got a ton of high upside. We don't necessarily know his floor, but he's a very well-rounded young player. Shooting is just his biggest weakness, and that's the Pistons' biggest need, which makes this so hard to understand. All right, like, why? We were talking, or Trajan Langdon was talking about shooting and spacing. He doesn't fit that. But what that tells me is, A, there's probably another move to come, because you're talking about the logjam with the forwards / wings, a logjam with forwards and wings that aren't the best shooters outside of Simone Fontecchio. But if you do want to build a team that plays better defense, because they were so bad at defense last year, he's arguably the most complete defender, or at least maybe has the highest upside as a defender in this draft.
He showed the best defense at the highest level of play that a prospect can play.
Yeah.
So
I do subscribe to the notion that I would rather draft offense and coach defense, like try to bring out find a coach who can bring out that effort to play good defense. But it's like I'm trying to picture this if they didn't draft Asar Thompson last year, who I think of as somewhat of a similar player. Ron Holland's actually probably more developed, a better offensive player by far. I don't know. I like a lot about him. It's just hard to picture without another shooter on the team, without them going out and getting another shooter. But again, there are guys with what Sacramento did. Kevin Huerter might be on the block. Like Zach LaVine, if they make that trade, that automatically adds some shooting, some athleticism to that backcourt. So it's not a finished product. I can't get past the fact that he can't shoot. I'm trying to – what I really want – here's what I really want to picture at least. I hope that on draft night, or even preparing for draft night, that Fred Vinson went up to Trajan Langdon and was like, oh, I can fix that. Like, I see something there. His three-point shot isn't broke. I can fix that. So if you want to take that player, I got you, Trajan. I hope that happened.
Yeah, and you know what? Shout out to Kevin O'Connor, NBA. He says, Ron Holland to the Pistons. This is great news for him with Fred Vinson there as an assistant coach. Vinson is one of the best shot doctors on the planet, helped overhaul Lonzo's mechanics and turned Ingram into a reliable shooter. Made his biggest difference with Herb Jones. And you can find those stats out there. He helped people raise their percentages as much as 6 and 7% from behind the arc. And what I like about Ron Holland is this. He took a low amount of volume. Sometimes with a guy like that who shows to be able to have some offensive game, maybe if he takes 6 or 7 threes a game, like you saw with the Dalton Connect, maybe he finds that percentage get up to actually 30%. Because shooters like him generally get better as the volume increases. And so when I'm looking at this 3.1 and did kind of the quick math, the goal here for Vincent is, can you help Holland within those 3.1 attempts make one more 3 a game? Right now he's sitting at 0.77 made threes a game. Can you help him get up to 1.8 made threes a game? And that's the 3-point percentage that you would like from Ron Holland if he's not going to shoot a high volume. And if he's going to shoot a high volume, can you make 2 of 6 threes a game? You know, when you look at the strides that they made with a guy like an Isaiah Stewart now, who is a reliable 3-point shooter, it does make me more optimistic about Ron Holland as the pick now, because I like everything else about Ron Holland. Everything else. We continue. When we even talked about him in the prep during Woodward Pistons, during the morning show yesterday, and after the draft, everything else is there. Yeah. That's why I continue to tee up the questions like, is it just the three-point shooting that we're concerned with? Because this is not necessarily an Asar Thompson type of a pick to me. This is a guy who's coming in that can handle the rock. This is a guy that can create his own offense. This is a guy that can get to the rim from the top of the key easily. This is a guy who, if you fall asleep, he's dunking on you. Like he can play make off of it. He has like this kind of natural feel and charisma. And then when he gets into kind of this ISO mode where he's kind of on one wing and putting his back to the basket and things, I'm seeing flashes of stuff that you can't teach.
Yes.
And so if all you have to really teach is the shooting mechanics, he has everything else, man. I can see why he was a former #1 overall prospect to be drafted into the NBA. So it's like I'm not going to scoff at Ron Holland. He has a lot of discernible skills. He has the size. He has the weight. We were talking about some of these other players like a Cody Williams. He would have to get his weight up at under 180 pounds. With a Ron Holland, you got a guy who's already 208 pounds and 6'8". So when you're talking about defense, when you're talking about guys coming to the NBA and worrying about injury issues with some of these other guys, some of these guys being able to get pushed off of their marks and such, Ron Holland already kind of has the framework that you cannot teach, a skill set that you cannot teach. And the thing that he's lacking right now is something that you can teach. And the Pistons have some of the best people in the entire world at being able to teach this one skill, and that's outside shooting.
Yes.
So
let's keep talking about. I want to get everyone's opinion. Get KG, JB, Justin involved. I got some more questions about Ron Holland and the fit. But cool, can you tell me about Premier Pet Supply?
Hey, listen, like you said,
the
Pistons brought in the best, Fred Vincent, to try and help this Pistons team get their best shot. But I can tell you where you can go to get your pet.
But Kool-Aid,
yes, sir.
I meant to ask you before we went to break, the three-point line in the G League, it's an NBA three-point line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he was an 18-year-old shooting from the NBA three-point line. Not to
straight out
give
of high
him
school
excuses, but you'd like to think as he gets stronger, shooting from deeper gets a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it what all the scouts and all the national media, isn't that the excuse that they give to Matas Buzelis, his teammate, who performed worse than him? You know, they're similar players, but when you look at what Ron Holland was able to do despite the lack of shooting versus Matas Buzelis, who did some good things, he was considered, for whatever reason, this higher draft pick, this higher prospect, because people believed his shot could get fixed. What leads people to believe that? They like his mechanics and his base overall form. But when you look at what Ron Holland was able to do also as an 18-year-old, when you talk about the opposite end of a Dalton Connect who's 23, you talk about the ceiling and the potential, Ron Holland put so much good stuff on film, and he stuffed the stat sheets regularly. He's athletic. You know, he's not an athletic freak of nature, but he has like the sneaky athleticism that just takes his game to that extra amount of level. I like his handles. They're sneaky good. They need to get tighter, but I do like his handles and his ability to play in the pick and roll as well as in the mid game. He has the ability to just kind of he's shifty. He can stop on a dime and change directions quickly. He can handle and he can finish very well with both hands. I like it. Man.
I do. I had
some potential.
Yeah, I had a note that I really like seeing a young kid who can finish, who's comfortable finishing with both hands, especially comfortable finishing both hands with contact. Like he's not afraid of contact. He attacks the rim. Is this too wild of a comp? A young coming out of San Diego State version of Kawhi Leonard.
It's not. You
know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying that's what he is now.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard has become a superstar when he plays. You know, the 20 games a season that he plays. But I'm talking about the defensive skills, shooting 75% from the free throw line. Like not broke mechanics, room to improve.
Yeah.
But just kind of that sneaky, athletic defender. I think Ron Holland was a better offensive player at his age now than Kawhi was even at San Diego State. But some of those similarities, or at least what he could be on the defensive end, a true wing stopper.
Yeah, kind of really this guy who can effectively play the 2 and the 3, the 4 in the pinch, especially as his strength gets up. Because we keep saying, well, just let Buzelis get his strength up. He's going from high school to the G League. Something happened in that year. They're not used to where that line is, but they both had some decent shooting mechanics and some numbers before that. So I'm going to apply this to Ron Holland too. Let him get his strength and development up, and he's actually a much better frame than a lot of the other players that we all thought could have been higher potential guys. He has the weight already. He has the height. He has the handles, like really good handles. He has the ability to get to the rim. He has the ability to play really, really good defense. Not just man-to-man, but the help side, the weak side, and in some pinches, being able to help defend the rim from the weak side position as well, or the help side position as well. So that's why it's like, you know what? Just kind of looking at it all from a standpoint of what he can bring to the table and kind of mixing that with what the organization is also saying about who Ron Holland is and what they expect out of him. This pick aligns and it fits with what Trajan Langdon said he wanted, and I can see how it can work. The comparison to Kawhi Leonard, you know what I mean? Obviously, we want them to reach it. We're not saying that they are those guys, but in terms of what it could be, what the striving could be, what the thought could be, I like it.
Sports on Air and chat, and I've heard it a couple times, but Sports on Chair said it this morning, Jimmy Butler ceiling, or a Justice Winslow floor type guy.
It's kind of thinking of Jalen Brown, but
that would be a phenomenal ceiling.
Yeah, well.
And he's a smart kid. He's mature. What's up, KG?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that because I did see some of Trajan's presser last night, and Trajan said that they talked to him in Chicago, and he's a player that, like, he knows his role, he knows who he is, and he has a high motor. So all that is all well and good. And I got some comparables that Ryan himself said that he compares to. Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brown, and Jaden McDaniels. He feel like he can be that type of player in the NBA. So where I do worry is the Fred Vincent factor, because while he is a great shot doctor and all that, Kool-Aid, you said, he can raise players' percentages maybe like to 6 or 7% more than what it is. With this player, that's still only scraping around 30%. If they decide to keep Asar Thompson, that's another player with a really bad 3-point field goal percentage. So I don't know. You're putting pressure on him right out the gate. Trajan did mention his name in the press conference. So he has a lot of confidence going forward that Fred Vincent can be that guy to fix these guys' jumpers. And, I also worry about the efficiency with Ryan, because although he does have a more all-around game, as evidenced by everybody I've heard and some of the highlights I've seen, it's just, I don't know, man. He's an 18-year-old kid still, and even if he's your starter, he's not going to have the same efficiency coming in. I just don't feel like he will. He won't be able to put up the same amount of shots, especially when different players on this team will need to have the ball in their hands more. So can he be a more efficient shooter? I think he was only 44% in his time in the G League. So I just worry about the efficiency as well. But can it work? Sure. Will it work? That's a whole nother question. And you might not even see the dividends of this for another 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even if all things work out.
And that's fair.
Let me piggyback real quick, and I'll let you answer.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point, and I couldn't help but think about Max Clark and the Tigers. So you could have gone and gotten, I'll use Dalton Connect or Donovan Clingan, an older, more established player who played a couple years in college. The Max Clark pick to me tells him the timeline for the Tigers is 2 to 3 years out. It's going with that draft class. That's what Scott Harris did. It was his first draft class. So that sort of tells you a little bit about their timeline. I'm starting to think that this too is the timeline Trajan Langdon's putting on himself and on this team. That this Ron Holland is going to be a part of the Pistons' future.
Yeah, it's
going to take him a couple years to really come into his own. And that's probably what they're building for. Take on contracts this summer or this offseason. They're going to see a lot of weird things happen over the next year. But I think in 2 years, 3 years is when it starts kind of coming together.
I love that comp, Broder, because it's Max Clark versus Wyatt Langford.
Yes.
It's literally the exact same thing where Clingan is supposed to be this NBA-ready big versus Ron Holland, who is 2 to 3 years away.
I don't know if he's necessarily 2 to 3 years away.
I'd like to hear that.
And that's what I wanted to be able to talk about. Like, his defense to me translates day one. Like,
that gets him floor time from day one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There might be parts of his game that are 2 to 3 years away, but if all that we're worried about is his 3-point shooting effectively, then I'm okay with that. He shot, it was 48% in the G League on 15.5 field goal attempts, almost 16 field goals. That's not easy to do as the focal point of that team, of the G League Ignite. You're playing with a lot of new players as well. Like, there were a lot of guys that were new to professional basketball that were playing on that G League Ignite. That's why Modest Buzelis is so young. That's why Ron Holland is still so young. Yeah. But he was the man on that team, and he was the best player in a lot of the games that he matched up in the G League. And so it's like, I want to be able to take something away from that. Like, even though I know he has some deficiencies that we wish weren't there, I also, and we're going to say that those things are just going to automatically translate. I want to be able to take some of his efficiencies, though, and believe that some of those things, too, to be fair to him, can translate as well. Yeah. The NBA has seen young players come in and do well. The one thing we know is a Jaden Ivey, who I believe Ron Holland is probably a little bit more offensively skilled than. Jaden Ivey kind of got into this league and instantly was like, hey, 15-point score a game, 17-point score a game, just off of his skill set and low ability to shoot from behind the arc. So Ron Holland, somebody who's younger, 18 years old, didn't really shoot a high volume. If this was his shooting percentage, if this was his three-point field goal percentage, he was shooting like 5 or 6 a game, I'd be a lot more concerned. But right now, as you asked about Fred Vincent, can you help them make maybe one more three-pointer per game? Yeah. That's the goal right now. Okay. Can you help his shot get a little bit more consistent to the point that he's shooting at least that 30% on the low, 30, 35% on the low volume.
So the people defending him have to take a shot at least seriously, which will help his athleticism and his cut ability to be able to. With that gap closer, there's more that he can do versus them just playing off him and taking that cut away.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. And his mid-range game, it's not the most efficient thing. He likes to take that shot, but it's not the most efficient. But if you can turn him into a guy that really is more of a two-level scorer, from behind the arc is reliable, and obviously we know we can get to the rim and finish. You got a good player in your hands that I don't think is 2-3 years away. Okay. If you're talking about 2 to 3 years away from being able to reach his full-on potential or ceiling, I can definitely see that. But in terms of being able to be a contributor right now, this team is so void of talent, both ways, offensively and defensively, that I think he has a great shot to be a part of the rotation day one.
I didn't happen to see the Trajan Langdon press conference. I saw Ron Holland talk to the media. I don't think he was in Detroit. I think he was in, and you guys, the beat writers, might have talked to him separately. But what were some of the other takeaways from Trajan Langdon's press conference? I have a strategic question for you before 9 o'clock. Just if did they miss something? But KG.
No, I wonder if maybe Trajan had Ron Holland in his plans when he was with the Pelicans. Maybe he did his research and he kind of fell in love with him back then, because he did mention like there were offers leading up to the draft and the day of, but he said the calls dried up essentially once the draft got started. So was there a deal there? Maybe, maybe not, but I just wonder about that. Was he already dead set on maybe adding a Ron Holland to a Pelicans team that he was a part of, before he got here?
And I'm going to piggyback off KG again and maybe throw a wrench into this. And I got this quote from Madeline Kenny of the Detroit News. Shout out Rob Beard. She said, the Pistons fielded numerous calls with teams looking to trade up leading up to Wednesday, but when the time came, the phone didn't ring. Trajan Langdon said, so this might have been what you're talking about in the press conference. Of course I would have been elated if we could have been able to collect an asset, move back, and get a player of Ron's caliber, Langdon said. But I think we're very, very, very happy getting Ron at our pick this year. Do you have any concerns with them not having made a trade? I'm just going to read my notes word for word. How close is this to Scott Harris failing to trade E-Rod last year? Did they miss big not trading back, gaining some assets, and maybe still getting Ron Holland at 8, 9, 11, 13, another pick later in the first round?
Since we don't know exactly what was offered, it gets a little tough to be able to say if they missed out, because we see exactly what the value was with one of the few picks that happened, the only pick that happened in the lottery. And it was not a big return at all.
Yeah, on draft night, there weren't many trades, so it seemed to dry up for everybody. Yep.
And in the top 5, you almost have to give yourself an opportunity to see who's going to be there. Because if Ron Holland is somebody that's pretty high on your draft board, and you know what's being talked about behind the scenes, on this level, there are scouts at every single game. There are scouts at every single event. You're talking. You guys have seen them. You guys have been there and seen them. You're talking to these people all the time. You know what the league is going to do, regardless of what the media is saying. So if Ron Holland is high on your draft board, just like the Pistons, they had Jalen Duren at top 5 in their draft board, despite the fact that he fell to 13th, and who knows how far Jalen Duren falls. You draft him there, and all of a sudden, you're going to talk about a basketball player offensively and defensively who was way more raw and needed a lot more development. That's Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
And so when you're taking a Ron Holland who kind of already has the physical attributes, the athleticism, and has a little bit more polish to his offensive and defensive game, I'm all there for it. Because I think your point stands the strongest. It's that strength. When you're going from high school to the next level and you're taking some steps back for your three-point shot, you're going to see a dip in your efficiency overall. When you get that strength and that development and the type of worker that he is, that's going to be, in my opinion, what determines who Ron Holland is going to be. It's how this guy works, how he works. That's what I want to see. He has the tools. I think his shot mechanics are there. I think he can be helped. It's just a matter of if you can add one more made three-point shot per game for Ron Holland. And I think everybody out here has a completely different connotation or feel about this draft pick.
Yeah, and to your point, maybe we should be giving Trajan the same grace that we give Brad Holmes. Yeah. If that's his guy and that's who he feels is going to be able to come in here and help this team, then I guess we just got to go with it for now, man.
Yeah, and for me personally, it's like to try and separate it, being on the beat, a lot of times, Broder and us on this show, because we cover it more from a credential standpoint, our job, in addition to giving our opinion, is to make sure we can try and explain what the organization is doing as well. Right. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Ron Holland stuff. There are two sides to every coin. You guys saw our first natural reaction is because we wanted shooting. Yeah. If we didn't go shooting, we wanted some discernible big man like a Klingon who we know is coming in and instantly doing a lot of what Nick Claxton is going to do, but he's not getting $25 million a year.
Not only that, we worry about the development. This organization hasn't shown an ability to develop players for a very, very long time. Right. So I'm very skeptical, man, going in. I want to have faith. I'm trying to be, on the optimistic side of my fandom, but just based off history, it's hard to do that.
But if we do look at history, and this is why I'm glad I get another regime. This is my third regime covering the Detroit Pistons credential. The second one that I've seen instituted. I was there for Troy Weaver's press conference. I was there for Trajan Langdon's press conference. And honestly, everything looked like roses early on with Troy Weaver. Mm-hmm. Everything. It was easy to say trust in Troy. Yeah. So in reverse for Trajan Langdon, a basketball mind in a basketball room that we believe is a little bit more intelligent than the previous one, I have to just stop and think. I got to stop and wait and just see and say, you know what? Let's see what Trajan Langdon does have in mind. He brought Fred Vincent here for a purpose. It didn't save Monty Williams' job. Listen, this guy is just an asset. He's an asset, and he has been this all throughout the league.
He's Terrell Williams.
Yeah. Think about how much we do talk about the Lions' positional coaches.
Yes.
Yeah. So I applaud this by the Detroit Pistons. It gives you the ability to try and take a swing on a high potential guy. Yeah. If before the draft we were saying trade this pick to bring in somebody that we thought was better or could help us right away, you know what? Shame on us. We were saying it all along. It's a weak draft. And you know what the returns proved? That it's a weak draft. Mm-hmm. That's what it showed.
And there wasn't much.
Trade was weak. It was low. Like the Pistons weren't going to get anything traded.
And let's be clear, Shad brought it up earlier in the chat. It's not like it was a super deep shooting draft either. Like there were only maybe not even a handful, 3, maybe 4 shooters. Mm-hmm. Maybe not even that. It might have been Reed Shepard and Dalton Connect, who were the best 3-point shooters in the draft. It's not like it was that deep in 3-point shooting.
It wasn't. And so it's like, if Dalton Connect is not the guy that you believe can give you more skills, because Ron Holland is basically your Swiss Army knife right now. He has a lot of discernible skills he can give you, whereas with Dalton Connect, there are some improvements he has to make defensively. Though he can help you and be a team defender day one, he is not the ISO and the man and the help defender or the rim protector that Ron Holland is. We talk about the sneaky athleticism with Dalton Connect. Ron Holland has greater athleticism than Dalton Connect. Yeah. So it's like playmaking ability, Ron Holland's a little bit better. Creation ability, Ron Holland is a little bit better. The shooting, Dalton Connect proved it over 6.5 threes per game.
He's the shooting and spacing.
Could have helped Cade right now.
He's that immediate shooting and spacing help that without even doing anything. He's on the roster. You know that this team has more shooting and more spacing on the floor for Cade. Yeah. We don't get that. And that's the big, to me, that was the gut reaction.
Right.
That was the Jahmyr Gibbs draft pick at 12. Like, Like, well, I kind of like that player, but why?
Right.
Yeah. That turned out to work out pretty well. I'm hoping this ages well over time. Flannel said it last night. Shoot, we all said it last night. We hope this all makes us look dumb, our first reactions of what the hell are they doing. I hope they make us look silly. Yep. Clay, I also like the point you brought up about you covering the beat and beat writers and reporters in general. Like, when you're covering the Pistons, and while you do cover it with a hint of optimism, as I cover the Lions, and that's just the way I am too, your job also is to try to make sense of what the organization is doing and share it with our audience while giving like that's the tricky part of this job that you and I do. We want our opinion too. We're hosting this show, and we got to be honest. We have to be honest about our opinions, but we also have to show the organizations that let us in there, that give us that backdoor look, that we're at least trying to share. All right, what are they thinking? What are the positives that could come out? We're not writing everything. We don't know what the next move is. Even in the second round, we don't know who they're going to pick. But this is just the beginning of Trajan Langdon's reign here in Detroit, and how you're positioning this and what the Pistons might do next, what this pick could mean both in this first year and 2, 3, 4 years down the line. I appreciate it. I appreciate
you, man. It's been fun to be able to see this thing at Woodward Sports take off the ground. And Ryan, shout out to Ryan in the chat. He said, I've heard this before. It reminds me of Stanley Johnson. Ron Holland, to me, is a better prospect than Stanley Johnson. A much better prospect. One of the knocks on Stanley Johnson was that he could get to the rim, but he had some issues sometimes finishing. Yeah. Ron Holland does not have that issue. He gets to the rim, and that's one of his bread and butters there. His handles, that was something that Stanley Johnson did not really have. Ron Holland already has handles. Does he need to tighten them up? Yeah, he does. But think about what we're talking about here. When you think about like a Mikal Bridges type of player, a 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" guy who can, in pinches, play in the backcourt next to Cade Cunningham, if the Pistons find a way to get a stretch forward, do you understand the types of lineups they will be able to put out there on the court?
Who's out there? Maybe we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Stretch forward would be nice. Kevin Huerter would be nice. Another shooter would be nice.
Simone, Cade, Ron Holland, give me a stretch forward.
And if you have
anybody else, just throw anybody else.
Holland or Sarr, one of them coming off the bench. Like, that's not a bad second line. Like, you have what we hope to be a lockdown defender coming off the bench. Like, we start thinking about what the bad boys Pistons were like. The 04 Pistons were like. That bench after Chauncey and Rip, it was Mike James and Lindsey Hunter. It was defense. It was a very deep team. I like at least getting back to some of that juice of the old teams in the past. The NBA has changed, which is the question mark in my head. Like, there's got to be a good mix. Whoever this coach is, I love the people, the position coaches, the specialists that they've added. I do think this coaching hire is going to be huge. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I did want to speak to just Ron Holland, the person, as well.
Yeah, let it fly.
In this press conference, he seems like a very genuine person. A very grateful person as well, an appreciative individual. And he said he's looking forward to being able to come to Detroit and getting this thing turned around. See, he understands that there was a stigma with all the losses here last year, but he said he actually believes he learned a lot more from his G League Ignite experience, where they had a whole lot of losses than he would have if they went in there and had a whole lot of wins. He said he got to learn a lot about himself. He got to learn about what he has to do to work, because you're talking about a young kid going from high school to professional basketball, not even college basketball, professional basketball. And so he said he got to learn a lot about himself, and just kind of hearing him speak at the table, it at the press conference, it continued. And then you hear Trajan Langdon's comments as well. You start to see exactly what they like about who Ron Holland is, and they're looking for leaders on and off the court, as well as Trajan Langdon said this, quote unquote, in the weight room as well. Ron Holland is a guy who is a student of basketball. He's a guy who also wanted to make sure people of Detroit knew this. He loves doing things in the community, and he cannot wait to get here to be a part of that too. Obviously, as Pistons fans, observers, supporters, and media, we want to see them winning. But in terms of everything that Ron Holland is saying right now, and he doesn't have to be this optimistic about the Detroit Pistons, he's ready to come here and go to work. And as it relates to us now being Detroit Pistons fans, observers, media, supporters, whatever you want to call yourself, Ron Holland is now a Detroit Piston.
Yep.
Period. You know, that's just what it is. And I wish and I hope him the best. I know our crew and our panel does as well.
Yep.
So again, congratulations to Ron Holland, the Detroit Pistons #5 pick in the 2024 NBA draft.
Let's go.
Congrats, my man.
Yes, but before, since I have to take off here in a minute, Justin's going to hop up here on the desk.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Two Actually, I'll give you a reminder after. I want to remind the chat about something. But I really wanted – I didn't know if you guys are going to continue to talk basketball at all, talk about the NBA round one in general. But I had something on there on maybe the best or worst picks or winners of the draft. When I woke up and saw how the Timberwolves finished their draft, their first round, getting Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon, a team that just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They lost to the Celtics. I thought that's as good of a two draft picks for that team as you could get.
I completely agree. They need perimeter scoring, and that's what they got. They got a whole lot of it.
Yeah,
a whole lot of it. And Rob Dillingham, he gets to learn from Mike Conley. They need a young point guard on that team, which is crazy to say since they would draft 3 point guards a year, every year as I was growing up.
Yeah.
And then another shooting guard / wing to play with Anthony Edwards or come off the bench. Hearing Neil talk about Terrence Shannon at the end of last night, might have been after you left, KG.
Yeah,
he was preaching.
He was preaching, and he's a great player. The only issues were the off the court stuff, which he was completely innocent. Like that was the only concerns before he was proven innocent of all that.
I was going to say, I see Curtis Murray in the chase. Say, can we talk about the second round? I am going to be doing a stream a little bit later. So definitely stay tapped in to Woodward Pistons. We'll be covering and recapping the second round. But, sheesh, I should have mentioned this earlier in the show.
Sheesh.
Shout out to Soroki's in Madison Heights as well. They're having kind of this big event down at their 10 Mile and DeQuinder location today. Hey, we will have boots on the ground between 4 and 6. Interacting with people. Okay. You guys can get a taste of some food and go home with some things that you like from Soroki's crispy chicken and pizza.
That's what's
I
up.
totally forgot all about that.
Love that. Love that. Last reminder, chat. Tomorrow is the return of Bar King. We're getting started. You can submit some bars of your own, some lyrics. Shoot them into my email, broder@woodwardsports.com. Can't promise we'll read everyone. There's already been a few people who sent some lyrics in. Keep them, if you can, between 4 and 12 lines. Get creative, have some fun. Put your name in there, whether it's your chat name or whatever name you want to be shown live on the screen or whatnot. Put as much detail as you can in there, but shoot me an email, broder@woodwardsports.com. We're doing that tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Let's go.
I appreciate you guys. I do have to take off. Justin's hopping up here to finish the show with the crew.
Yeah.
Kool-Aid, could you first tell them about Lady Jane's?
Hey, you know what, Broder? You are awesome. Have a great day, brother. I can tell you guys about something else.
I'd also been loving your Pistons talk today. You've been killing it, so shout out to you.
I appreciate you. You know what? I want to be able to hear from the people more. Thank you guys for engaging in this chat. Like I said, go ahead and hit that like button, but the phone lines are open, 313-552-6322. Again, the phone number is 313-552-6322. Go ahead and call in. Tell us what you think about the Detroit Pistons draft pick. If you agree with things we're saying, if you disagree with things, if you want to argue, if you want to kumbaya, definitely call in. We look forward to having you guys as kind of comments being things that we can discuss on this show. So, you said we already got a caller?
Oh, yeah, we do. Eric from Detroit. Eric from Detroit, you on Wake Up Woodward, bro. What's up?
Hey, what up, though, Eric? Thank you for calling in.
What up, Eric?
Oh, my bad. Eric, you there?
What up, though?
Yep, that's on me.
Hey, what up, though, Eric? Thank you for calling in, brother.
Hey, what's going on, fam? Man, it's been a while, man. I'll be watching here, listening to the show every morning. I'll be at work. I work at 4, so it's a lot of noise. I don't get to call in like I used to. But I just want to say I appreciate you guys and everything y'all been doing. So, on this Ron Holland thing, I was kind of upset about the pick myself. But then as I sat back, slept on it, I'm like, I think Trajan is getting a lot of heat from what happened with Troy Reaver in the past regimes. And I'm like, I'm going to give this guy some grace. You know what I'm saying? Because it's only fair to let him come in and shape and mold this team the way he wants to.
That's right.
So I do believe he's going to put shooting around. But remember, in his press conference, the key thing he said that I was on was develop these young players. He kept saying that we got to develop, and everybody kept asking about the playoffs. He said, we can't talk playoffs. We got to learn how to win. We got to learn how to be a team. We got to develop these young players. So development is his key. So I know everybody was all like, "Oh man, we need shooters." But he did get a 6'8" guy who can defend, who can create his own shot, who can finish at the rim, who got some athletic tendencies. So it's like, okay, somebody's out though, because it's a log jam at 4 and guard. So it looks like Ivy and Stu might be the 2 men out. But Kool-Aid, I want to know, who do you think they might aim for in this second round, or do you think he might package this second round pick with a Stewart and the Ivy and go get somebody else?
Hey, that's interesting there, man. When you listen to some of the rumors, especially with the fact that they were already kind of gauging the trade value of an Isaiah Stewart, I actually do lean a little bit more towards kind of what you're saying there with packaging this pick with a person like an Isaiah Stewart to try and free up a little bit of this logjam, because even more so than the guards, I think Ivy is a little bit more safe than really what's going on with the 3s and the 4s. When you look at the 3s and the 4s, and you think about the fact that the Pistons need to get better defensively in the paint, but they also have to get better from behind the arc and shooting the ball and offensive efficiency from the 4, there's such a logjam for what they have to do in the future, let alone what's going on right now, bringing in another one of these kind of 6'8", kind of 3-4 tweener type guys. You got Asar, you got Simone Fontecchio, you got Isaiah Stewart. So something is going to happen, or else one of these guys are not going to play. And I don't think you can afford that with Asar being top 5 pick, Isaiah Stewart being one of your better players on the roster right now, Simone Fontecchio being probably the best player of this bunch of wings that we're talking about, and Ron Holland, who you just picked with another number 5 draft pick. Something has to resolve itself. It feels as if Isaiah Stewart would be the odd man out, but
how can he be the man voted off the island, though? He's the second best shooter of that collective. Yeah. And we suck at shooting. Like, that makes no sense. And I'm a hater, honestly, of Isaiah Stewart. I do not like Isaiah Stewart's game at all. But to a point that we need shooters, how can we trade him? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Shooter, though.
He's not a shooter, but he can shoot at a relative clip for an NBA average.
Decently.
He improved decently, but in the areas that what we need from our 4 is not just the shooting. When you're talking about if he was a 3,
right,
then yes, definitely. But from the 4 position, the one thing you said, all the things that you dislike about his game, for the last 2.5 years, I've been stating Isaiah Stewart needs to be off the bench at best. So if you like what he brings to the table, he needs to be off the bench, because he's too small, he's undersized, defenders are able to score right over him. They're not stopping anybody at the rim. And those things have hurt the Pistons a lot more than what Isaiah Stewart's shooting has helped this Detroit Pistons team with. So it's like, from that standpoint, if you have to do something about this logjam. You do. And who are you moving forward with in the future? Asar Thompson or Isaiah Stewart? You know, who are you moving forward with in the future? Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart. You know, who you move forward? Simone Fontecchio, Isaiah Stewart.
Isaiah Stewart's the 4th on the list.
I like him, but that's what I'm saying. So if you had to move off of somebody, I can see why it would be an Isaiah Stewart. I'm not even advocating for him to be traded, but the Pistons got to do something. Right. And one thing we know is, with all of the amount of draft picks they've picked over the last 3 to 4 years, which has been a lot, they've picked like 8 or 9 first-round draft picks in the last 4 years. You got to do something with this talent. If they're not going to pan out on your squad, you got to kind of trade some people and move this thing forward.
100%.
Eric, was that all for your call, brother? We appreciate you, man, for calling in, man.
And I want to say about Asar Thompson. I think if we can get Asar Thompson to develop a shot, because Kool-Aid, you know this, he got a nice form. Yeah. He got a nice form. If we can just get him to develop a shot in a mid-range game, I think that dude can be all NBA player, honestly, with his defense, with his IQ at such a young age. But y'all, I just want to say, Wake Up Woodward crew, y'all killing it. Y'all the best sports talk show in Detroit, period. We love what y'all doing. Keep doing it, man. And hey, y'all a family, man. And I want to say I love each and every one of y'all, everybody in the chat. Stay safe. Be blessed. Have a good day, y'all. Let's get it.
Hey, much love.
Shout out to you, Eric.
Yeah, much love, bro.
Let's rock, man. Hey, that's what it's all about, man. And he's right. Being in the practices and looking at Asar Thompson, and at Detroit Kool-Aid, at Woodward Sports. We probably post these clips at Woodward Pistons as well. Asar Thompson has a shot, and his form changed from the beginning of the season to what it was towards the end of the season. And so it's like, yeah, man, if these guys can take the step forward with a Fred Vincent, the Detroit Pistons are going to have themselves in a really, really, really good situation here. But you said we have another call, KG?
Yeah, we do. The homie. Oh, no. You want to take it?
Throw the number out one more time. 313-552-6322. Who we got, brother?
Yeah, it's the homie Terrell from FL. So he's calling. He wants to speak about Ryan Holland. What's up, Terrell?
Hey, I'm intrigued. Hey, listen.
Yo.
You never disappoint. I am intrigued, honestly intrigued with your take. And it's going to, you know what? I'm going to let your opinion weigh heavily on mine.
Oh, thank you, Kool-Aid. I appreciate you, my boy. And good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning. Top of the morning.
Before I make my Ron Holland point, I just wanted to point out also that I feel the exact same way that all of you guys do. Like, the product was so bad that it's, like, basically unwatchable. And, of course, I want them to be very competitive next year. But the reality is it's just not going to be. I mean, Trajan has so much work to do to rebuild the team. So it is going to be a 2 to 3 year thing minimum before we even start talking about playing games and stuff like that. I know it sucks, but that's just the way it is. But that'll give Ron enough time to start developing that shot. You know what I mean? And get his feet wet and all that stuff. And, hopefully build some chemistry with Cade. The only thing that I wanted to say about Ron was that I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about him. I'd heard his name before, but I really didn't know anything about him. And so, of course, I had to go, pull up the highlights and watch some of his games and stuff like that. Yeah. And he did remind me of somebody. And before I tell you who it is, I want everybody out there to know I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that he is going to be this guy. I'm just telling you what it reminded me of. So I don't know if any of y'all are old enough to remember what Kobe looked like in high school, but their bodies and their games are very, very similar. Like, Kobe had that same explosive first step, that same hop where he would just yak over people real quick, and he couldn't really shoot that good, when he first came into the league.
You trying to give me bread?
And he looked, I was like, I was like, damn, he kind of looks like Kobe, to be honest. I was like, it was an old reference and shit, and I'm not saying he's going to be Kobe, but I was like, he's got the skills. If he can get his shot into the 30s, at least in the mid-30s, he should be a good, solid, scorer for this team, and hopefully somebody that, can build his game around Cade and we can do something with. I know there's a log jam at the forwards now, but hopefully, Trajan will figure it out. You know what I'm saying? We just got to have some faith in the guy. Trajan's smart, so hopefully he'll do the right thing.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Terrell, you said what I was literally describing earlier, but I didn't know if it was appropriate to necessarily or to invoke the Kobe name. But when I was saying earlier, his but it was when I was talking about his ISO game, his footwork, his back to the basket stuff, you can tell like the influence in his game. And I think that's one thing you can definitely say. There is some shades of him sitting down and studying the game of Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, when he takes those first steps on people around the three-point line and is taking off from around the free throw line and shit, just yamming on people, I was like, damn, okay, Kobe Jr., relax.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's going to be Kobe. If he can be half of Kobe, I'll be happy. Yeah. But that's all I had. Have a good morning, fellas.
Hey, you know what?
Thanks, Terrell. Appreciate
for
it.
Supporting, always calling in and dropping the fire, man, bringing your opinion. And it is. I think a lot of people, as they kind of take the time with the Ron Holland pick, if they weren't for it before, I think it's really because we look at this thing on the surface and we instantly see the three-point shooting percentage. But when you look at the film, when you look at him as a basketball player, like you look at like actual basketball plays, not even just highlights. Like look how plays develop. Even on some plays where shots are missed by the teammates or shots are missed by him, and on the defensive side of the ball as well. I like him as a basketball player. Just as a basketball, I'm like, I really like him. Yeah. And he has that ability, on his high potential, to be one of those ISO demons. Mm-hmm. That's what you see out of like a Mikal Bridges. When he says that that's kind of, and Jaden McDaniels, when he says that these are the types of guys that he's patterning his game after or that he thinks he can have the type of effect, it's the type of potential
somebody
that you
can get a bucket.
On.
And it matters that he played in a man's league. He played in the G League. He didn't play in the NCAA. He didn't play, well, the Euro is similar, but played in a man's league, and that has to mean something. It probably means he can make a higher impact quicker than a lot of guys who are coming out of college. And everything you're telling me, I'm excited as hell. I mean, we need another ISO ball scorer, and hopefully he can find a fit next to Cade, because that's where we are now. If he doesn't fit next to Cade, Cade will probably be traded.
You know what? Ellis Durrell said, I told you guys DeMar DeRozan. And I'm saying, like, this guy got some shades, man. He got some shades. And I see Weezy in here. He's mad. He said it could have been Jason Richardson, Iguodala, Jalen Brown. Nope. MFers reach straight to Kobe. One of the things that I've seen from even scouts and such, and if you listen to him himself, like, he'll talk about the different shades of players that he watched.
Yeah.
You can see the shades in this game, but where I depart with Terrell from FL, you know, and I'm glad that he prefaced it himself. He said he's not saying he's going to beat this guy, but he can see the shades of it.
Right.
You're going to see that in the NBA.
But the development has to be there. I can't, you know, I got to pound the table for that, man. Like, the development has to be there if you're taking this kind of risk, because this team needs three-point shooting in such a bad way. And I also feel like if you're going to go forward with Cade Cunningham from the organization, there needs to be some sense of urgency to turn this thing around quicker, man, because yeah, if you sign Cade, that's all well and good, but in another 2 to 3 years, you think he's going to take another 2 to 3 years of 14 wins, 24 wins? Like,
definitely not.
It's not going to hold up, man. So that's why I'm adamant about getting the offense together and getting this spacing together, because on most nights, you can outscore teams. You can have the best defense in the NBA, but it's not going to matter on a Tuesday night or a second night of a back-to-back when a hot team comes in. You're going to get torched anyway. I would much rather you be a team that can outscore a lot of teams, because that's just what the NBA is. I'm not saying don't have defense at all, but it's something that you can work on along the way. So I just really hope that they can get some established shooters on this team that can really help the floor spacing, because a player like this, fine, but you essentially, as of right now, added another Asar Thompson.
100%. And the last thing you want to do to Cade is to turn him into a Javi Baez, where he just does not give a shit. He doesn't care about the city. He'll do anything to get out.
But that's not good.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I get that.
I do push back on the Asar Thompson thing. Ron Holland has a certain instinct on offense that Asar Thompson has on defense. As we believe that Asar Thompson is this guy that can supplement guard the number ones, Ron Holland has the ability to be a number. Every level of basketball, he's been the number one. Modest Bazelis was a guy who had to submit or subject himself to the leadership of a guy like Ron Holland. Like, Asar Thompson was a guy who allowed his brother to be the lead guy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So there's a difference in terms of their mentality and their mindset of being a baller. And Ron Holland, to me, he walks like it. He plays ball like it. The only thing we're sitting here parsing over is his shooting on low volumes. That's it. I don't hear anybody that's saying that this guy can't dribble. Do you think he can dribble better than Asar? I do. Yeah. Can he get to the rim better than Asar? I do. Can he finish better than Asar? I do. Can he create his own shot better than a lot of the guys on our squad? Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. When I look at him as just a basketball player, there are things he could do right now. He's a great cutter. He's a great finisher. He's a great slasher. Like, those things are highly needed. Highly needed on the team. And then when you talk about his steals, 2.1 steals per game and 1.1 blocks per game, that's better than Duren's stocks. Yeah. And so it's like, as a basketball player, I don't really want to scoff at him. I want to, obviously all of us are going to have to do this. True. But give him his time and his chance.
It's G League competition versus NBA level competition. And you're not wrong. I was more so just speaking to the type of prototype, you know, that he is, because they are similar in prototype. But yeah, you do hope that Fred Vincent can come in and work wonders, because if he can get to a mid-30s three-point shooter, you are looking at a very, very good player that can go get his own shot, and he's all around. He can defend, he can do it all. So, and that's what this team needs, especially at the wing position. I just hope they can do it. That's all.
And I agree with that. I agree with that. Trust me, like, before the draft, we all were saying shooting. It's why I valued a player like a Dalton Connect. Yeah. You know, now they sit here with the Ron Holland. I just want to make sure that we're at least being fair to the level of player and that he's been up to this point as well. Right. You know, we're comparing all of these guys. Some of these guys are from overseas. Yeah. Never even touched the level of competition that he has. Because you're talking about, out of all these prospects, the highest level of competition you can play in before you get to the NBA, it is the G League. Yeah. And you're playing against NBA players. You're playing against guys who've been there for years. You're playing against guys who might played against Stanley Johnson. He did pretty well against Stanley Johnson. You know what I mean? Like, he played pretty well against a lot of these top draft picks and draft picks from years prior, and he actually got the chance to play with Cade Cunningham on some run teams as well. Yeah. So they already kind of know each other. They've been kind of in the same cycle, in the same circuits. Yeah. They come from Texas together as well. So it's like, yeah, I'm not trying to gas up the pick. I'm not saying this was the correct pick to make, because you know how I lean. I lean more towards you. I got you. But in terms of like who he is as a player, I think that there's a lot to like, man.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how much does the shooting matter to the impact he can have? Because we saw with Asar Thompson, we got to be fair to that.
Yeah.
His lack of shooting hurt his ability to be on the court. Killian Hayes, a guy who has some of the better assist to turnover numbers in the league, good defensive rating.
Yeah, he was solid.
These are not lies. These are on the stats. But he couldn't score worth a lick, and he couldn't shoot worth a lick, and it hurt his ability to be on the floor.
Yep.
There was an era in basketball where if you couldn't defend, it didn't matter what you could do offensively, unless you were an absolute gunner.
Yep.
You really, that was going to cut into your time, and the NBA has changed now. If you cannot provide that offense, this is going to hurt your game, and this is where somebody who's been billed as a gym rat, Ron Holland is being billed as one of those guys who is a workout warrior and is in the gym a lot and cares about the development of his game. This is where it's on him.
Right.
Andre Drummond came in with skills and had the talent, but as it related to being that guy who could go into the gym during the offseason, going to the gym when nobody else is looking, going to the gym where there's no cameras going so people can see you do, dribble, step back, three-point. I'm talking about where you're actually making improvement on your game. That's what this is on right now. It's not even on the belief of Trajan Langdon.
Right.
It's not on the hope of fans. It's not on what you did before. For Ron Holland, it's about what you're going to do from this point forward to make sure you improve every aspect of your game and bring that shooting up a whole lot, so that you can be an effective player next to Cade Cunningham and take the fullest advantage out of all your skills. Like, I think you're right, man. Like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I wanted to see this team have more of a 2 to 3 year window, but it's looking like it might be more of a longer term type thing.
So like I say I had to accept it.
Are we thinking like a 4 to 6 year window here, or
people were mad at Weaver who got to year 4? Iserman right now is on year 6, and I think it is a good segue for us to kind of get there, to get into what you have prepared for us today, and maybe we save some of these this Pistons conversation for tomorrow and next week as well.
Big
because
facts. Yeah, it's a big talking
it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. Like
they took us
right.
by surprise, man.
You're right. I mean, JB is right. You're right. There's a lot of great points around. Yeah. I'm not going to sit up here and act like any of us know exactly what the deal is completely.
You know what I feel like? I feel like you seen Friday, right?
Yeah.
And you know the part where Smokey is at Craig's house. He's trying to make a sandwich, and he like, how come you never got 2 things that match?
Yeah,
and that's just how it feels with the Pistons. We always got these one-dimensional talents, man, and it can be a tad frustrating. That's all, man.
Peanut butter, no jelly.
Really does have Ryan bricked up though, so that's hype.
I see that. You know what? It's we're gonna have to see. Like, listen, I am gonna be down at Vegas Summer League, so we'll be off the show for a couple days. But I'm gonna try and be down there for the early games. See, like his first 1 or 2 games.
All right.
Obviously, there's only so much you can take away from there, but you can see what he's been working on during that time. If he goes down to the Summer League, it's going to be a small sample size, maybe 3 to 5 games, and he shoots at least 30%, 35% from behind the arc. It's going to be something that I think encourages a lot of people, but still my plea to him is continue to be that guy that goes out there and works to get better all the time.
Right.
Because if you're going to say anything about Kobe, the number one thing you should want to be compared to is the work ethic.
100%.
Period. Everything else will take care of itself. Be compared to that guy, R.I.P. Kobe, as it relates to how he worked. It didn't matter if he was great. He wanted to be more great. That's what we need here. That's what we need in Detroit. That's what it used to be like here in Detroit, man. So, you know what? Let's get into this break. I want to be able to give that dude Justin his time. He prepared.